Good afternoon, Salam Tovim, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for coming out during lunchtime. It's the middle of the day, so I know everyone has to get back to work, but we have some very exciting information to share with everyone. You heard a little bit from Matan, our alum, and of course Marnie, our Director of Admissions here for the area. For those who don't know, I also want to introduce my colleague Stephanie here, who is the Executive Director, JNF for the region, as well as Southern Connecticut too. And of course Ishai Goldflam, who's the Executive Director of the Israel Advocacy and Education Department at JNF, providing programming for our communities across the country. And then, of course, Shana Sisk, who's our Associate Director of Marketing, our newest addition to the team, who are very excited about joining us to help us spread the good word. What's the good word? Aside from this merger, which what does, in fact, elevate JNF's impact across this country, because as you all may know, JNF's primary concern is what happens in Israel. It's about the infrastructure, right? We all know it started with trees, right? We all remember the trees. Well, that's already passé. We've got enough trees. We got reservoirs. They're building infrastructure in the south, in the Galilee, in the north, trying to help population disperse, attracting young adults to go and settle the land, so to say, the state of Israel being. What JNF also recognized was the need to invest in our next generation as part of this merger. JNF recognized that while there are wonderful programs out there, like Birthright Israel, we know, well, Birthright's already part of, you go into Webster's dictionary, there's probably Birthright Israel. It's part of our lingo. And other wonderful fellowships and leadership tracks. There was one link that was missing, and this is the high school teen immersion sector, which is vital. And if you don't know what's happening on college campuses today, you should know what's happening on college campuses today. Because it's something that we've seen in our history before. We're talking about boycott, divestment, and sanctions of Israel, academic boycotts. Our next generation, those who will be tomorrow's senators and congressmen, businessmen, cultural icons, are studying today on college campuses, and their view of Israel is not very, let's say, positive. And this is already keeping it, on the minimal. I would actually even go ahead and say it's very negative. In fact, the academic boycott in some areas are actually succeeding. What we recognize is not only do we provide such an amazing transformative experience to our students on a day-to-day basis, in the present tense, we are an accredited high school in Israel by the Middle States Association of High Schools and Colleges here in the U.S. We provide all the general studies needs that any student needs. We do over 1,000 students a year. Every student, and everyone wants to be an AP student, so we do the APs, the languages, the Mandarin Chinese, whatever a student requires in order to come back home to their home high school and slip right into things, we have to do. Otherwise, who will send their son or daughter to a semester abroad if they're not going to be able to get the credits they require? So that's how we get them in. But of course, the anchor of our program is the high school in Israel program, the core studies, Israel studies. The teaching of our chronology, of our history, from Abraham to this day. It's an amazing program. Our pedagogy is like none other, where we fuse the formal and the informal and bring it together. One of the things that we realized when the merger took place is that we had 25,000 alumni out there. Started to do our own research, started to get out there into the communities to understand where these alumni are. What we found was that many of them are in leadership positions, sitting on boards of federations, rabbis in communities. In fact, Rabbi Hammerman and we have colleagues who are rabbis that went to Amhsi and contacted me after finding out that I'm there, saying, "Oh my God, that's why I went to rabbinical school." Now, we're not looking for everyone to make, to become rabbis. Nor are we looking for anyone to become a religious observant Jew. This is not what the program is about. Nor do we push Aliyah. In fact, I said to alumni, don't make Aliyah. We have enough Jews in Israel. I need you to go back to your communities and make sure that your leadership knows that you're there. And not only that you're there, but you're present and available to take action, to be available to speak at fundraising events. Who better to speak about their experience than a 16-year-old? Because we have wonderful rabbis and professionals who are great speakers and orators. But to be inspired is by someone who's around 16, 17, who all of a sudden recognizes what's important. We took this model and recognized that we wanted to take and formalize it to create a leadership track. This is where it gets exciting. A year ago, we started something called the Impact Fund, because the essence of this program is to create an impact in your community. Go back to your community, be available for your rabbi to speak at a fundraising event, maybe to say a few words over high holiday services. Who better to speak again than a 16-year-old to the entire community about how important Israel is to them? Go and write an op-ed in your local newspaper. And then when you go to college, be a campus leader. Be a change maker. Because what's happening today is quite frightening. And if you know your history, we've seen it before. So we said let's call it the Impact Fund, because we wanted to have an impact. We figured we'd try it out. We started off in Phoenix. Why Phoenix? Because that's where we identified a major donor who was interested in investing in in our next generation, specifically in the leadership track. So we started out in Phoenix a year ago. A year later, it caught fire. We have 5 impact funds. We have 5 impact funds within 1 year. This is no small order. We're now in Phoenix. We're in Boston. We're in Philadelphia. We're in Atlanta. And of course, here in New York, out of Westchester. We have a major donor who came in, who learned about the program, of course, was in touch with my colleague Stephanie, and they got to speak and understand what exactly the impact of this program is. He fell in love. He couldn't believe that it works. Because he saw the percentages of our alumni, those who are marrying someone who's Jewish, or those who donate to a Jewish cause, or those who belong to the local synagogue, and how those numbers far outshine the U.S. Pew Survey. Remember 2013? The U.S. Pew Survey that brought everyone up in arms. What are we doing? What did we do wrong? Well, our numbers are double and triple them. So we're doing something right, and Richard Backel, who is the donor of this impact fund in the area, recognized it and decided he was going to invest. And here we are now with our 5th impact fund in New York. It's very, very exciting, and it puts us on the map in a very, very big way. We're getting calls from the Jim Joseph Foundation, from other major grant-making entities and programs, wondering what we do and how do we do it. Because it turns out that our alumni are out there making the world better. So what we want to do is we want to double, multiply, triple, quadruple the impact that we have. And that's what we're going to start doing here in the greater New York area as well, coming out of Westchester. So this officially, to a certain extent, we're launching here the Impact Fund in this area. I want to leave you with one last little note. This Impact Fund is as good as we're going to make it. Because it has potential to really change the face of what's happening here in this immediate community. And when these same fellows go on to college life and they become campus fellows, and they become the heads of their Hillels, editors of their campus papers, and activists on campus, standing for Israel and what she truly is, which is a light unto the nations, democracy in the Middle East. One of the things that our students realize and discover is that magic formula that I always search for. You may have asked yourself, how is it possible that this ancient people still exist to this day? For thousands of years, this cultic religion of sacrificial offering all of a sudden transformed itself, evolved itself to become Judaism as it is today, but still can think back and connect itself to the temple times, to sacrificial offering, which today are prayers. You can't really count on more than, I don't know how many religions out there can really count on their relationship to antiquity. Right? The Persians have done, the Greeks, they're not there. The Egyptians of today are not the Egyptians of then. They don't worship paganism, right? They're not paganists, they're Muslim. But the Jewish people we still practice rites as they did it during the temple times over 2,000 years ago. So I always wondered, and maybe you wondered, what is that magic formula? How is it possible? Yeah, we can go into the whole thing of questions and answers and discovery, but what is the essence of that formula of who we are? And this is what our students discover. And I'll give you a hint, it comes from the name Israel. How did we get the name Israel? How did we get the name Israel, anyone? Who was Israel in the Bible? The Torah?
Jacob.
Why did Jacob become Israel? How did Jacob become Israel?
Fought with an angel.
Very nice. For you have struggled with God and with humanity, and you have succeeded. It's a very powerful theological statement right there. We don't bow down to God, we struggle with God. We're such chutzpahdiks that we struggle, we challenge God and say, hold on, God, what is this? What does it mean to us today? We ask questions when our child comes home from school. I don't ask him, what did you learn today? I said, what questions did you ask today? This is the formula of who we are and how we exist in this day and time. And this is what our students come away with. Like the salmon fish, we swim upstream against the current. We don't accept things for what they are. So aside from the knowledge that Matan and our alumni gain through our program, it's also a sense of conviction, of knowing that you stand on the right side of history. And this is something that our students require. When I say students, I mean our next generation, in order to be able to carry that mantle and forge their link to the chain of Jewish continuity.
This is what we're going to be doing here in Westchester, in the greater New York area, and throughout the country. In 20 years from now, we're going to have over 300 impact fellows from around the country who are going to be tomorrow's leaders, and God willing, make sure and ensure that U.S.-Israel relations maintain, and that we have a good life as we do to this point in time. I want to thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your time, and without further ado, the video.